So, Valve has unveiled their new machine. You've seen my previous video, and I was actually quite excited. Then I sat down and had a look at it and saw the specs, then saw what it could do, then realized, well, a lot of people are saying, including PlayStation fans and the media, that Microsoft should be worried about this. In fact, all consoles should be worried about this. But is there really any validity to this? Is there any real reason why anyone should be worried about this? And in this video, that's what I intend to kind of break down and discuss, because I know this box is designed for your living room. It's designed to sit in a nice place in your living room to bring you PC gaming. But that is exactly what Microsoft is doing with their Xbox Prime. They're trying to bring everything into one place. But there is a stark difference between what the actual Xbox is doing and what Valve is doing. And in my opinion, they're targeting two very different markets. And on top of that, I just don't see Valve actually reaching the heights and, audience that Microsoft will. But before we get into any of that, a word from our sponsor. But before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Eneba.com. Eneba is a gaming marketplace with a huge library of over 40,000 digital gaming products. They constantly have the hottest deals on a variety of different categories that include Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Nintendo games, gift cards, subscription parties, including Game Pass Ultimate, and more. And for all of my mobile gamers, they got you covered for a range of mobile games, including, but not limited to, Genshin Impact, Zenithal Zero, Honkai Star Rail, Wuthering Waves, Roblox, PUBG, and more, offering you the best value, and what's more, everything you buy gives you cashback into your wallet for you to spend on your next purchase. I have personally used this site many times ordering cheap currency for my kids on Roblox, so I can attest to the reliability, but don't want to take my word for it. They also have a great Trustpilot rating too, to provide even more confidence in the service they provide. Getting the best deals in gaming has never been easier. All you have to do is go to eneba.com, browse the website, or search for whatever you're looking for. Cheap games, gift cards, they have you covered. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and click the links in the description below and visit eneba.com for the best deals in gaming. And right now, for a Black Friday special, they are doing a giveaway. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below for the giveaway, register your interest, and you are entered. Simple as that. Right, back to the video. So Valve has announced a bunch of hardware. They've announced the Steam controller, the Steam frame, which is basically a VR headset that's completely ignoring the AR aspects that other VR headsets are doing, and just focusing on the VR headset itself, with the ability to install Steam games on the actual headset natively. This is a big contrast and difference to everything else. So that is its USP. But where does the Steam machine actually come into all of this? It's actually relatively quite weak. And so, what is it that it is actually actively trying to do, and what is it aiming for? Well, it turns out that the Steam machine itself, essentially in terms of its power output, was derived from the Steam surveys. They looked at what people are using at the lowest end, at the top end, and then kind of somewhere just above halfway. That's how they decided the actual metric for this actual machine in terms of its power output. Looking at it, it was originally said to be as powerful as a Series X and a PS5. It's actually less than those. So when you're looking at stuff like the PS5 Pro, it's even pushing way ahead. So we already established that this machine is going to be underpowered. It also has only 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is probably the most criminal thing it can do. On top of that, you've only got 16 gigabytes of memory, which you cannot upgrade. Now, I know Steam OS is very efficient, but it really did need more than that, or at least given the option to upgrade the memory. You cannot. In fact, the only two things you can do is upgrade the SSD, and that's it. I said two, but it's just one. So they'll have two versions of this machine, a 512 gigabyte and a 2 terabyte. My advice is to pick up the 512 if you're going to buy this and upgrade the memory yourself. It should be relatively easy to upgrade the memory unless they've made it difficult, but that is the only part that can be freely interchangeable. But then you have the whole Steam OS, and that's where the problems really start to come in. I just don't see this as a threat to anything that Microsoft is doing. Games like Fortnite, Battlefield, Apex Legends, Valorant, Call of Duty, among others, these games that basically have easy anti cheat are not going to run on the Steam OS. Now, obviously, Steam OS has another 3 months to come out, maybe four. There may be some work during then, but this kind of needs to be communicated to the audience. People are going to buy this and expect that same level of output. But the problem is now you're seeing on social media who plays Call of Duty, despite the fact that these morons can't see that Call of Duty is a game that is a top seller every single year. Fortnite is a game that makes so much money that it pretty much funds everything Epic does. So why on earth are even people considering talking down on something like this is beyond me, and it's very disingenuous, and it is something that a lot of people are going to fall into the trap of when they buy this machine and realize that they can't do it. Now, there are some ways around it by installing Wine, which is essentially Windows, but people aren't buying this machine to do that stuff. The average person that will go and buy a Steam machine to play their Steam games in their home is just going to want to plug and play, and that is the whole focus of this machine. It is primarily a PC. It is running on full Linux. However, when it boots up, it's going to be booting up into Steam OS, which is a layer on top of Linux that basically has the whole user interface. And so that's where people are going to want to stay. The technical savvy people will know their way around, but those that are not, they're not going to sit down and watching YouTube guides and stuff like this to start figuring out how to do this. I mean, they're going to have to start creating pseudo passwords and start going into the command prompt, or kernel as it's known in Linux, and start typing code to actually get these things installed. It's really not as simple as people think, right? So, yes, if you're technical savvy, it's a walk in the park. But if you're not, you're just not going to venture into that. And so you've got a lot of games that simply just are not available for you to use. And so that's where the problem comes in. Additionally, based on the price of this thing, if it's priced anything above £349, now I am saying pounds, not dollars, or £400 at max, I just don't see who this is for. Based on the spec that it's available, people are saying that this is going to be 700, 800, 900, £1,000. There's no way, no shot on earth that anyone in their right mind is going to pay £1,000 for this machine. It's just not worth it. On top of that, when you're looking at the Xbox Magnus, if you're looking for true raw power, the Magnus is going to be like 4 or 5 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. This thing is promising you 4K 60 FPS, but with the caveat that it's with FSR, so it's upscaling. It is not giving you native 4K, which is really difficult, and the average person doesn't even know what FSR is, right? So I think this machine is going to get a lot of people upset. I think this machine is going to, disappoint some people, especially with the fact that, as far as they're concerned, on their Windows PC, they can run all games. When they get this box thinking it's going to be the same, that they can run it underneath their TV and have that cross connection, it's not going to do that. Now, obviously, there are other tools so you can stream the video footage through, but at that point, it kind of defeats the purpose because anything can do that. You can do that with your Steam Deck. You don't really need the actual thing. I just feel like the way the community, especially PlayStation fans, are bigging this up like it's the second coming of Jesus, it's really silly and really stupid and really disingenuous. And not only are they lying out of their teeth in order to try and get this win over Microsoft, when the Xbox Magnus is just going to steamroll this like there's no tomorrow, pun intended, but they're also kind of giving out so much misinformation and nothing that's credible that, honestly, it's almost like they're trying to sell something that they know isn't an apple, but they're still trying to sell an orange as an apple and trying to deceive the user base that this is a better product as an apple, even though it's an orange, than a real apple. That's essentially what they're doing here, which is crazy that people that are content creators are going to go to this length and actually lie out of their teeth. Now, the video you're seeing on screen that's looping around, that's basically Valve's intro video. is actually really good. It does a lot of good in explaining what this is and what they intend to do with it. However, it doesn't say any of the cons that come with this machine in terms of the actual capability, limitations. And there are a lot. People are saying, well, you can just install Windows. The average person isn't buying this to install Windows. That's the problem. They're buying it because it's a Steam box and they expect all their games to work. Now, fast forward this now to the Xbox Magnus, which should potentially now be landing next year, because if Microsoft has any common sense, they are going to fast track that with AMD. Now that Valve has shown their true hand, they want to get that out there and they want to make that price as competitive as possible. I can see a £800 price tag for the next Xbox. I can see it personally, but we will see if that does materialize. People are saying it's going to be 1200, whatever. I just don't see it being that expensive. But this is the perfect time for Microsoft to now start really pushing it, come the summer of 2026, showcase what's coming out, or maybe even at the Dev Direct, add a little teaser, or at the Game Awards, add a teaser. Valve has shown their hands, and now it's time for Microsoft to come in and do exactly the same. I don't see how this is going to threaten Microsoft. I don't see how this is going to do anything. Steam is not going to put this into shops. They're not going to put this into Currys or Walmart or Tesco's or anywhere like that. The only place you're going to be able to buy this is off the Steam website. And so, in terms of the market share that this is going to have in lifetime, it will probably be somewhere around the Steam Deck, which is around 3 million so far, which is not a lot. And I suspect the Steam machine is going to be for those people that wanted the Steam Deck and are going with the Steam OS and are going to be happy with a Steam machine. It's going to sell a fair few machines. I'm not saying it won't. But the fact that it's going to be limited to the website and only sold by Valve, so they can control the pricing and control the subsidies of what they're doing, because I think they are going to heavily have to subsidize this, especially based on just the power that it actually is delivering. I don't see any threat to Microsoft. I don't see any threat to anyone. This just looks like a no-brainer for Microsoft to push their thing forward and actually compete in this market. Microsoft needs to make sure that their OS is good, it's functioning properly, better than what is on the Xbox One Ally X right now, and actually be something that is ready for launch and not just a beta soft release like that one is. With that done, they are going to be in a really great place. Microsoft just needs to make sure you can do all your Windows updates and everything else like this in the background with the press of one button. There should be one tile there that says update your Xbox. You update, click on that button, and it does all the updates for you on its own, restarts your machine back to the window, the Xbox OS. That's it. That's what you need. It needs to be simplified. And that is what Valve have done really well with the Steam OS. But the fact that there are so many limitations to this, the price point where it's aiming at, and the specs of this machine mean that it's going to be severely underpowered. I just do not see this being anywhere near the competition or anywhere near affecting Xbox. I know PlayStation fans would love nothing better than for it to do that. But you know what? There is one thing that is really cool about this. Now that the Steam box is there, there's no need to go buy a PlayStation 5, right? Since they're promoting this so much, since this machine is going to be, in my mind, 350, 400, it's cheaper than a PS5. Why don't you buy one of these and play your PlayStation 5 games? It'll run better as well, right? Because Linux is a better operating system. So maybe they are cheering for it in the right way, just not realizing how much damage it's potentially going to do to PlayStation as opposed to Xbox. Xbox is doing it right. They're going down the Windows route. You've got access to everything, whether it's Steam, GOG, Epic, Battle.net. You've got everything. And when it comes to Steam, you can play every game, not limited to what Easy Anti-Cheat is capable of doing or hoping that it will be fully compatible 5 years down the line. Day one, you can play everything. And this is why Magnus has nothing to worry about. Despite what people are trying to fearmonger you with or trying to get that win, they're delusional and stupid. The reality is, Xbox Magnus is going to be a pretty hot machine. And I'm extremely looking forward to seeing what it looks like, when it will be released, and how it is. And I really hope that there will be minor upgradability with the Magnus, maybe the RAM and the SSD at the very minimum, the RAM and the SSD. And maybe we can do other little bits and bobs as well. But at the very minimum, the RAM should be upgradable. If I want to go from 32 to 64, I should have that option. And that's where I think the Steam machine really failed. There's no upgradability from that 8 GB of VRAM. There's no upgradability from that 16 GB of RAM. This machine is going to become very, very dated in record time. And now, if this machine does become anywhere near remotely successful, like the PlayStation fans are hoping it will be, all games are going to have to support this, which means we are going down the pecking order in terms of, game capability. 16 GB now is the bare minimum that you should have for gaming. 32 is the standard now. Why they wouldn't go 32 is crazy. And that is why Xbox won't have this problem. But anyway, folks, that's it. If you're asking me, Microsoft has nothing to worry about with this. This is a no-brainer. People aren't talking about any of the limitations. Valve is doing a bad job here in explaining the limitations of Steam OS because of, and what problems that can encounter. I fell for this when I bought my Steam Deck because I wasn't a Linux guy. And therefore, when I bought it, I found out the hard way that my free-to-play games that I like to play, or, other games that use Easy Anti-Cheat, I couldn't play. Even the Evil Dead that I wanted to play, I couldn't play because it had Easy Anti-Cheat. And I had to go through all these hoops just to get it working on different launchers to boot it that could potentially bypass, risking banning my account. Who's going to risk banning their account? It's crazy, but this is what they're championing for. There is no shot. There is no problem here for Microsoft. The only thing that they need to do right now is push that date and make sure that the 2026 November date is landing. With Grand Theft Auto just around the corner, it's going to be playable on that machine. Make sure that it can actually push past the boundaries of the Series X on that new XBOX Magnus PC Xbox, and you're going to have a winner. Simple as that. All right, folks, that's the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.